Hi everyone. So today in Immigration Chat, we are going to be talking all about the new travel ban. Okay. That's what we're going to be talking about today. There is big changes coming to US immigration, and you need to know about this. US immigration policy as far as traveling to the US for certain countries are changing, okay? As of June 9th of 2025, some nationals, depending on the country you're from, there's 19 specific countries that are either completely banned from entering to the US or they are limited from entering the US. So we're going to talk about which countries are banned, which countries have limited access, and what that means for you if you are in the process of getting a visa to the US or you are in the US and you're filing for family to come to the US. I am U.S. immigration attorney Lillian Chukura, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. Now, that system has been changing, and this is another big change. I will tell you, I will tell you that this is not a surprise. Okay, U.S. immigration law has been changing, and we did know that there was going to be some form of travel ban with this administration. We just knew that there was going to be a travel ban. I honestly thought it was going to come sooner than it did. I will say that I thought it was going to come much, much sooner, but we have it now. And also, some of the countries that are on the list are not the countries that I thought were going to be on the list. And so we're going to talk about all of that. Now, according to the Trump administration, the reason that they are putting these countries in a complete travel ban or putting them in a situation where they are limited on the amount of visas they can get or the type of visas they can get to the US is because they're looking at if the country has um, risk of terrorism and reducing the number of visa overstays from those countries. I will say that in the actual executive order where it was listed, it does for each country say what percentage of people from those countries end up overstaying their non-immigrant visas. And that was used as a basis for basically going ahead and saying that this should be, this travel ban should go into effect. I do expect, okay, I do expect that there will be lawsuits over this. However, they tailored it to what they did last time. So there may not be, so the lawsuit may not actually result in any particular changes happening, okay? But we will see what happens with those. Now, the country's facing a full travel ban. This means a full travel ban means that if you have a immigrant visa, if you have a non-immigrant visa, you are still not able to come to the US. So that means even if you're, let's say, the spouse of a US citizen and you are from that country, you are still not able to get an immigrant or non-immigrant visa into the US. If you already have an immigrant or non-immigrant visa from and you're in those countries or you're from those countries, you would not be able to come into the US as of June 9th. Okay. This is big, especially for people that have waited years to get to their immigrant visa interview and are now in the process of actually entering the US. Now they're getting another roadblock. So the countries that are facing a full travel ban are Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Again, a lot of the reasons that the administration is giving for this is because they are looking at whether these countries are going to breed terrorism. And they're saying that the country does not have enough vetting for the US government to know who's coming into the country and to know their background. So if the country eventually gets the level of vetting that the Trump administration is looking for, then maybe they will come off the list. However, there hasn't really been a strict guidelines on what that actually means, right? On what the country has to do to get taken off the list. Now, for the full travel ban, remember that applies to all visas, immigrant and non-immigrant visas, student visas, spouses filing for their spouse, US citizen filing for their parents, filing for their kids, filing for their spouse. Travel ban, a complete travel ban affects that, okay? USCIS may still process an I-130 for someone that is from that country. However, the embassy will not be scheduling any interviews or giving any visas to people from those countries, according to this travel ban. Next up are countries that have a partial travel ban, okay? Again, the ban is a ban, but there are different levels to them. So the partial ban are Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. So those countries have a partial ban. And that partial ban is going to be really faced by people trying to get a tourist visa or any form of student visa. So that's the F, M, and J visas are really going to see this affect their ability to get a visa to the US. So this travel ban is specifically focusing on those non-immigrant short-term visas. And even if you do have a visa from that country, let's say you have an L1 visa, for example, you may have a shortened validity period for your visa. So instead of having like a 2-year visa, you may only get a 6-month visa or a 1-year visa. So it's really going to change how the embassies handle these types of visas. And like I said, when it comes to B1, B2 visas, you are most likely not getting those if you are from one of those countries. The student visas, the same thing. However, you may still be able to show the need for you to be able to come to the US, and the embassy can decide on a case-by-case basis whether to approve your visa or not, but you're going to have a very hard time getting any of those visas. But this does not affect immigrant visas. So we really want to make a clear distinction between a non-immigrant visa and an immigrant visa. So a non-immigrant visa is visas where you're coming to the US for a short amount of time. There's a specific amount of time that you're allowed to stay in the US. An immigrant visa is that you are coming here to become a permanent resident of the United States. So that is really the key difference here between a non-immigrant and an immigrant visa. So the B1, B2 visa, the F, M, and J visas are all non-immigrant visas. Again, one of the reasons that they're looking at doing this is because they believe that people from these countries have a high percentage of overstays. So they want to reduce that. Again, that is their reasoning. Whether it's actually accurate or not, we do not know, but that is the reasoning. And then as far as the exemptions, green card holders, right? We know there's the full travel ban and the partial travel ban, but there are people from certain, there are people that are exempt. So even if you're from any of these countries that have a travel ban, if you are a green card holder, if you are a US citizen, if you are an immediate relative with proof of the relationship, so you already have your visa, but you're an immediate relative of a US citizen, you may be able to have an exemption. And then if you are a special immigrant category, like an asylum or a refugee, and you are given that status, again, you may right? The key word here is you may be able to overcome that ban. Green card holders, like I said, do not have to worry about this travel ban because you are already a permanent resident of the United States. If you are a dual citizen, right? So let's say you are a citizen of Afghanistan, but you also have German citizenship. As long as you're trying to enter the US with your German passport and not your Afghanistan passport, the travel ban does not apply to you. So it's really important to know the difference between those two. And then what does this actually mean for you on a practical level, right? So we already know there is these travel bans. There's going to be delays. So if you're from any of these countries, expect delays in your visa processing, whether it's a non-immigrant visa or an immigrant visa. There's going to be delays. And if you are from a country that has a complete travel ban, just know nothing is going to happen unless the ban is, you know, taken away by the Trump administration or some court somewhere agrees that the travel ban should not be in place. Again, this happened in the last administration. They were able to overcome it and still have a ban in place. So I think they just tailored it to what they did the last time that worked and let the courts let the travel ban be in place. So that's what they're doing this time. So just know it's not you, it's the administration if you're from one of these countries and things are not moving. Okay. There's going to be, in general, so for these specific countries, there's a travel ban, but for the embassy as a whole, right, for each country, there is going to be a higher scrutiny for every single visa applicant, whether you're a non-immigrant visa applicant or an immigrant visa applicant. There is a new focus on the visa overstays, especially with the attack that happened a week ago. So there is going to be a new renewed focus on visa overstays and trying to reduce those numbers, and that is also going to play into when it comes to non-immigrant visas. The administration is most likely going to be looking at different countries and seeing which countries have the highest percentage of overstays and deciding whether that is going to affect anyone that's trying to apply for a visa to the US. Okay. So if you are in a situation where you're from one of these countries or you're not sure if, especially for the partial countries, if you are not sure how the ban could affect your process, feel free to schedule a strategy session. It is a free 15-minute session where we can talk about your status, your situation, and figure out how this could affect you and what the next process you should undertake is. All right. So that is quickly going over the travel bans. Again, there's the countries facing a full travel ban and then the countries facing a partial travel ban. All right. And if you have questions and you're joining me live, please go ahead and put them in the comments. I am more than happy to respond to your questions because there is a lot going on and you probably have a lot of questions as well. All right. Barhane is asking, I married my wife in November, submitted marriage-based application. She came in through the humanitarian parole program from Nicaragua. What are the chances of her application being approved? So when it comes to that process, the application can be approved, right? I can't tell you because I don't know your filings and I don't know your situation. Just know the application can be approved. The only thing that I will say is you want to make sure that you are presenting your relationship in the best light possible, that you're including as many documentation as possible for your relationship. You don't want to be in a situation where USCIS is saying that they don't have enough proof that you two are in a valid legal marriage. Okay. The fact that the parole program for Nicaraguans have been has basically ended by the Trump administration does not affect whether you can petition for her. because the parole program itself is ending. However, in order to adjust your status in the US as the spouse of a US citizen, you just need to be able to show that you had entered the US with parole or with inspection. So there's two steps to it. If you entered with parole or you entered inspection, then you can apply for adjustment of status in the US. So that's not really the question here. She did enter with parole, and that parole is good for adjustment of status. The question becomes your relationship and being able to show that relationship. Okay. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I am more than happy to answer your questions today. And if you're watching this on Instagram, I am so sorry that things are not looking right over there, but I will be doing like a direct upload to Instagram later so that you can get the full video as well. All right. And then I don't see any questions. Hopefully, I was able to answer any questions that you may have about this travel ban. So let's just go over again who is actually affected. So there's a full travel ban and there's a partial travel ban. So the full travel ban applies to nationals from these countries, not people that reside in the country. You have to be a citizen or a national of that country. Okay, so Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen have a full travel ban. Okay, I want to make that clear. They have a full travel ban. That means that the people from these countries, the citizens and nationals from these countries, are barred from entering the US entirely. Okay, it doesn't matter your visa category, you are barred from entering the US. And then there's the partial travel ban, which again is only a few countries. It's not every single country, let's be clear. So the travel ban, the partial travel ban applies to Burundi, Cuba, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. So those are the 7 countries that have a partial, okay, have a partial travel ban. And that means, right, what does that actually mean? A partial travel ban means that there's a restriction on immigrant visas and other certain non-immigrant visas like visitor visas, student visas, exchange visas. So B1, B2, F, M, and J visas are really the target of the partial travel ban for those 7 countries. They are going to be looking to, even if they do approve those visas, to make sure that they limit the duration of time that you can be in the US or the duration of the visa. So sometimes they give people like 5-year visas or 10-year visas, meaning you can travel in and out of the US on those visas for 10 years. Wow. If they shorten it, they may make it, instead of 10 years, they may drop it down to like 1 year. And then you have to renew that visa so that they can keep um, checking your information every single time that you apply. So that's what the partial travel ban is. They're just going to do a lot of scrutiny for people from those countries. The full travel ban is no one is coming in from those countries, regardless of the visa type you have, except for some diplomats. Again, right? Anyone else, if you're not a diplomat, unfortunately, you're not coming into the US if you're from those countries. There are people that are exempt. So green card holders are exempt. Dual nationals are exempt if you're a national of one of these travel ban countries, especially if you're a citizen of a full travel ban country, but you also have citizenship for a country that does not have a travel ban. So you're a dual national. Then, if you are traveling on the passport for the country that does not have a travel ban, you are fine. Okay. So for me, for example, let's say I am, you know, a UK citizen, but I am also a Somalian citizen, right? Let's say that. If I'm coming to the US or if I want to enter the US, I need to enter the US with my UK passport and not my Somalian passport. Same thing can go with, if you're a citizen of Ghana, but you're also a citizen of Sudan, right? You need to enter the US with your Ghanaian passport and not your Sudanese passport, because you need to, when you're a dual citizen, you need to pick the country's passport that you want to enter the US with. And they're saying for those individuals, you just need to make sure that you are traveling on a non-restricted passport, which is going to be the country that is not under a travel ban, especially a country that is not under a full travel ban, okay? Also, certain government, humanitarian, and family-based visas can have exceptions. Mostly immediate relatives of US citizens. When they say family-based visas, they're talking about immediate relatives of US citizens. If you are waiting for a sibling petition and you're from one of those countries, just know you are banned. It's just how they have written this, and we need to know the facts, right? And then if you are an asylum seeker or a refugee and you're from one of these countries, but you are already in the US, you are not banned from applying for asylum, applying for a green card once your asylum is approved, or applying for a green card once you've been in the US for a year after having your refugee status. So there is going to be delays. The full travel ban countries are not going to have visas approved. They're not going to have people traveling into the US with any sort of visa. If you're from one of these countries and you have a visa to the US already, you are still not allowed to come into the US. So I want to make that clear as well. So it's not just for new people trying to get a visa to the US, it's for anyone from those countries that have a full travel ban. If you're from a country that has a full travel ban and you currently have a visa to the US, you are still not allowed to enter the US. Okay? Your visa is not going to work because you're from that country. All right. So that is what this travel ban is all about. That's what it's going to do. And I want to make sure that people understand it, know what's involved, and if you have questions about it, that you are asking those questions, because the more you know, the better you are able to navigate the ever-changing world of US immigration. It changes for us all the time as lawyers. And I guess we are more used to the changes because they happen so often and we're so used to it that sometimes we forget that it's a whole shock to clients and people that are not dealing with US immigration on a daily basis. So that's why I wanted to do this live and basically cover this travel ban in as much detail as possible, and basically let you know that this is not for every single country in the world. However, it can trickle down to every single country in the world where they're going to do extreme scrutiny for non-immigrant visas. That's what I really see happening here, is that for countries, especially with everything that's been going on in the US, with the discussions about visa overstays and all of that, there's going to be more scrutiny on countries where there's a high percentage of people that have overstayed their visa in the US, and their ability to now get a non-immigrant visa to the US. Remember, non-immigrant visa means temporary. You're coming here for a visit and then you're going to leave. You're coming here for school and then you're going to leave. You're coming here for a specific program and then you're going to leave. Those visas, no matter where you are in the world now, is going to get higher scrutiny just because of the state of things in the US and the renewed emphasis, right? The renewed emphasis on visa overstays. All right. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. If you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, please put them in the comments. I do go back and respond to as many of your questions as possible. And if you have a specific topic that you want me to cover in detail, either in a live or in a recorded video, please let me know. Someone did let me know in the comments, and I did go ahead and do a whole video on the topic that they wanted. So please go ahead and ask me questions, give me video topics that you want me to cover, and I'm more than happy to do that. And always share with me when, when you're getting your visas, when you're getting your citizenship, green cards. We are here to support you. We are here to make sure that you have a community of people rooting for you as you are going through this insane immigration process. And I'm saying that as a lawyer, but also knowing that my clients are going through this in their real life, right? I have some distance because I'm the attorney helping my clients, but I also see the struggles and the hardship that my clients are going through because of this ever-changing thing. And people are just nervous. They don't know whether they should start filing their case now or whether they should wait and see what happens. My advice every single time is meet with an immigration lawyer, see what your options are first, see what the chances are. I have no problem, honestly, I have no problem telling people that you may not want to file this now, right? You may want to wait. And that will never change, right? I always work from a place of what is in the best interest of this person that I am talking to. Not, oh, well, you can file it and this is the fee and that's it. It's what is in your best interest? Is it in your best interest to file this now, or is it in your best interest to wait? And that is the equation and calculus that people are going through every single day. And when I see like stories or people saying, oh, why didn't you file all this time? Why did you wait so long to file your application? Everyone's journey to a green card, everyone's journey to a citizenship is different. Okay, my journey is different from my sister's journey. That's how much I know that it's not the same for everyone. Okay, my journey is different from my sister's, even though we came to the US on the same day. Our journey to citizenship is completely different. Okay, so it's so important that as you're going through your situation, try not to compare, try not to freak out until you have some legal advice that says, yes, this is not a possibility for you. Okay. Do not self diagnose, just like, with medical things, do not self diagnose and start treating yourself. Definitely get that consultation, get a legal diagnosis, and then move on to the next steps. Whether you choose to self heal after you get that diagnosis is completely up to you, but at least get the diagnosis. Okay. All right. That's all. That's all I have for you today. Again, if you have questions, please put them in the comments. And if you are just joining me, we talked about the travel ban and the countries that are currently either have a full travel ban or a partial travel ban. So a full travel ban means regardless of what type of visa you have, you cannot enter the US if you are from one of those countries. Okay. So really important to know that. And then the partial travel ban basically says we are going to greatly limit visas from these specific countries, especially non-immigrant visas, like the visiting visa and the student visas. We're going to greatly limit those. Instead of getting maybe a 1-year visa, you may only get a 6-month visa. And it's going to be much, much harder to get those visas moving forward. Okay. So that is what we talked about today. I'll be back with you next week with more questions, with your questions and answering your questions live, like with more questions. Hopefully, nothing this major happens between now and next week, Friday. Okay, unless it's something in our favor, immigration wise. Okay, that is your advice for I-130 and I-485 interview, marriage-based. Ooh, great question. My advice, make sure you and your spouse are on the same page, okay? Because I always say this, and people always like, oh, that doesn't make, that makes sense. When it comes to simple as how did you meet and where did you go on your first date, you and your spouse might have completely different experiences of those things, right? You may have thought you met at this specific event, and she may not even remember that you two met there. Okay. She may not even remember that that's the first place you two met and think it was somewhere else that was more significant to her. Okay. So make sure you're on the same page about the basic things, about your relationship, where you met, how you met, your wedding, your day to day life, especially your day-to-day life, like your work schedules, your eating habits, your home, all of those things. Like in my practice for our clients, we do a full mock interview with these questions to just make sure that our clients are prepared and ready for the marriage-based interviews. Okay. Your interview your interview can single-handedly ruin your application. I don't mean to scare you, but your marriage based interview can single handedly ruin your application and can lead to an officer thinking that your marriage is fake. So be sure that you and your spouse are on the same page and do a mock interview either with an attorney or with a family friend or someone that can ask you basic questions and compare your answers just to get you used to answering those questions and see if there are places where you two do not agree on, a specific answer. Okay. I've had clients where we did a mock interview. One person said their first date was at Dunkin' Donuts. The other one said, no, we went to this fancy restaurant. To one of them, the Dunkin' Donuts was the first time they hung out. They really got to know each other. And to them, that's the first date. To the other person, it was just a meetup, right? We're just meeting up. It's not really a date. This one over here, the fancy restaurant, I got dressed up. That was the date. So it may not be that there's inconsistencies in your answers. It just means that you two may have different perspectives. Okay. It may just be your perspectives are different. So you want to make sure that you know that before you get to your interview. Okay. Again, like I said, the marriage based interview can make or break your whole case. Okay. And typically, your how you do in the marriage based interview will determine whether your case is sent to the fraud investigation unit. Okay. I'm going to do a whole video on the fraud investigation unit and how it's triggered and all of that. But just know the marriage based interview, inconsistencies in that interview is the fastest way to get your case in front of the fraud investigation unit. All right. So take it very seriously. That would be my advice. Take it very seriously. And take any additional evidence. So let's say if you submitted bank statements when you first filed, make sure that you're taking additional bank statements with you to the interview, because from the time you file to the interview is going to be some months. Okay, so show that in those months you were still using those accounts. So that's my advice there. Mohammed, my country, Sierra Leone, in the partial restriction, do you think it's going to affect my daughter immigration paperwork? If she is an immediate relative of a US citizen, it may not. Okay. So there are exceptions for immediate relatives of US citizens. And for a child to be an immediate relative of a US citizen, one, the parent has to be a US citizen, but two, the child needs to be under the age of 21 and unmarried. Okay. If the child is over the age of 21 or is married, they are no longer considered an immediate relative of a US citizen. They are adult child of a US citizen. And in that case, it would affect them being able to get that visa, and that restriction will be in place. However, if they are an immediate relative of a US citizen, based on the definition I just gave you, then they would have a better shot of having their interview scheduled and having their visa processed. And then once they receive the visa, being able to enter the US. And Mohammed, I am very sorry that you have to even think about that, right? That's the hard part about dealing with U.S. immigration is things can change depending on the whoever is president, and that's what I always tell people. The presidency matters. Who controls Congress matters, because that's what's going to determine what happens with immigration. Okay, so just hang in there. Depending on where you are in the process, if you're already at the National Visa Center, that's really where this is going to have more of an effect. However, if your case is still with USCIS is still going to process those I-130s. This does not affect the processing of I-130s. It only affects the processing of the visa. All right. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. If I do not see any questions, I will go ahead and end this live. Okay. So I don't see any other questions. Just so you know, if you would like to schedule a private consultation with me, you can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com, and click on Contact Us, where you can pick a date and time that works best for us to talk about your case and see how we can help you move it forward. And if you just have a quick question and you want to put them in the comments, please feel free to do that. I do go back and respond to your questions. And if there's a specific topic you want me to cover that I haven't already covered, or you want an update on a specific topic that I have covered, please feel free to put that in a comment, and I will see it and be able to plan a video for that in the future. All right. So thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you got value out of this. I hope this helped explain the travel ban even more, and hopefully less stress with more understanding, right? That's the goal, to give you as much information as possible so that you know what's really going on, and you can then decide if this actually affects you. Because I've had people from countries that are not even on the list contacting me about the travel ban. So that also sparked me doing this video. All right. So thank you all so much for joining me. I will see you next week with more immigration chat. Bye.